Om Namo Narayana. Welcome back to another day as we read through the Srimad Bhagavatam. Before I get started, I want to share a book with all of you that I'm reading right now that I just thought was really interesting. It's not Hindu. It's actually Buddhist. I rarely read any Buddhist books anymore, though I did practice for a summer in 2003 at the San Francisco Zen Center, but it just wasn't my thing. I didn't connect with it, but I learned a lot. I'd actually studied Buddhism in college earlier, and I remember all my friends raving about it, and again, I'm like, I don't get it. It just seems so nihilistic to me. Not nihilistic, hopeless or empty or something. You meditate, and at the end of the tunnel is this connectedness with everything, whereas in Hindu, it promises connectedness with God. And that just always, from day one, just struck me. So I don't know, but I saw this book and it was really cool. You see, I'm training for a marathon. I'm going to be running my first marathon. I've been going out, doing my training, and I run a 5K and a 5-miler, but I've never done anything like this. I've never done any sports, nothing, whatever. So this is like a really big deal, and I'm actually enjoying it, and I didn't think I would, but I saw this book. It's called Still Running, The Art of Meditation in Motion by Vanessa Zusse Goddard. She's a Zen teacher in New York who teaches running as form of meditation. The title is great because it means she's still running after like 30 years, but also stillness in running. I found this on Amazon. If you're a runner or a sports person or a marathoner or a future marathoner like myself, it's really cool. What I like about this and what I just wanted to share before we get into the Srimad Bhagavatam was she says running is practice. It is part of her practice. She realized at some point it actually made her Zen made her running better because she didn't separate the meditation from the running. And she says something that I've heard other teachers say in Zen. The Zen practice isn't when you're sitting in meditation, it's when you stand up and interact with the world. That's actually when the practice starts. That's Zen. And it's not about motivation, it's not about anything else. It's about something bigger than you. And for her, she writes in the book, the mind and body are connected, and so this connects the two. I personally believe in Hinduism, the mind and body are separate, so this connects me to God, but again, I just really liked what she was saying, so I just wanted to share this. A little something, a little different. It was like a random find, and there's not a lot of books on spirituality out there, and running in general. There is one on marathon monks in Japan. You see them every so often, and that's pretty cool in a slightly different way. Thoughts, comments, all that stuff below would be really cool, or if you've read this, or if you have other books, let me know. But let's get on into the Srimad Bhagavatam today, and chapter 9. And remember, this isn't just words on a page. We're not just reading this. This, for me, is a form of puja. This is, for me, not just learning, reading, because I read a lot. It's not just one more book. It's actually a form of worship, and it's a form of keeping my religion, and it's, all the time, and it's how do I say this? If meditation starts when you stand up, I guess, reading this book is part of Hinduism. It is, you're living the life. Anyways, something like that. I think you know the point. Chapter 9, the passing away of Bhishma Deva in the presence of Lord Krishna. Essentially, we are always in the presence of Lord Krishna. Alright, let's dive into this. You've sat through my long introduction. Sutta Goswami said, being afraid for having killed so many subjects on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Maharaja Yudhishthira went to the scene of the massacre. There, Bhishma Deva was lying on a bed of arrows about to pass away. At that time, all his brothers followed him on beautiful chariots drawn by first-class horses decorated with gold ornaments. With them were Vasya and rishis like Dhumya, the learned priest of the Pandavas, and others. Seeing him, Bhishmadeva, lying on the ground like a demigod fallen from the sky, the Pandava king, Yudhishthira, along with his younger brothers and Lord Krishna, bowed down before him. just to see the chief of the descendants of King Bharata, all the great souls in the universe, namely the rishis among the demigods, brahmanas and kings, all situated in the quality of goodness, were assembled there. Bhishmadeva, who was the best among the 8 Vasus, received and welcomed all the great powerful rishis who were assembled before him, for he knew perfectly well all the religious principles according to time and place. Sri Krishna is situated in everyone's heart, yet he manifests his transcendental form by his internal potency. This very Lord was sitting before Bhishmadeva, and since Bhishmadeva knew of his glories, he worshipped him duly. The sons of Maharaja Pandu were sitting silently nearby, overtaken with affection for their dying grandfather. Seeing this, Bhishmadeva congratulated them with feeling. There were tears of ecstasy in his eyes, for he was overwhelmed by love and affection. Bhishmadeva said, "Oh, what terrible sufferings and what terrible injustices you good souls suffer for being the sons of religion personified. You did not deserve to remain alive under those tribulations, yet you were protected by the Brahmanas, God, and religion. As far as my daughter-in-law Kunti is concerned, upon the great General Pandu's death she became a widow with many children, and therefore she suffered greatly. And when you were grown up, she suffered a great deal also because of your actions. In my opinion, this is all due to inevitable time, under whose control everyone and every planet is carried, just as the clouds are carried by the wind. Oh, how wonderful is the influence of inevitable time! It is irreversible. Otherwise, how can there be reverses in the presence of King Yudhishthira, the son of the demigod controlling religion? Or Bhima, the great fighter with a club, the great bowman Arjuna with his mighty weapon Gandiva, and above all the Lord, the direct well-wisher of the Pandavas? O King, no one can know the plan of Lord Sri Krishna. Even though great philosophers inquire exhaustively, they are bewildered. Best among the descendants of Bharata, King Yudhishthira, I maintain, therefore, that all this is within the plan of the Lord. Accepting the inevitable or inconceivable plan of the Lord, you must follow it. You are now the appointed administrative head, and my lord, you should now take care of those subjects who are now rendered helpless. This Sri Krishna is no other than the inconceivable original personality of Godhead. He is the first Narayana, the supreme enjoyer, but he is moving amongst the descendants of King Vrishi just like one of us, and he is bewildering us with his self-created energy. Oh, Lord Shiva, King Narada, the sage amongst the gods, and Kapila, the incarnation of Godhead, all know very confidentially about his glories through direct contact. O King, that personality whom out of ignorance only you thought to be your maternal cousin, your very dear friend, well-wisher, counselor, messenger, benefactor, whatever, is that very personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Being the absolute personality of Godhead, he is present in everyone's heart. He is equally kind to everyone, and he is free from the false ego of differentiation. Therefore, whatever he does is free from material inebriety. He is equibalanced. Yet, despite his being equally kind to everyone, he has graciously come before me while I am ending my life, for I am unflinchingly servitor. I am his unflinchingly servitor. Lord Vishnu, who appears in the mind of the devotee by attentive devotion and meditation, and by chanting the holy name, releases the devotee from the bondage of fruitive activities at the time of his quitting the material body. May my Lord, who is four-handed and whose beautifully decorated lotus face with eyes as red as the rising sun is smiling, kindly await me at that moment when I quit this material body. Sutta Goswami said, Maharaja Yudhishthira, after hearing Bhishmadeva speak in the appealing tone, asked him, in the presence of all the great rishis, about the essential principles of various religious duties. At Maharaja Yudhishthira's inquiry, Bhishmadeva first defined all the classifications of castes and orders of life in terms of the individual's qualifications. Then he systematically, in twofold divisions, described counteraction by detachment and interaction by attachment. He then explained by divisions acts of charity, the pragmatic activities of a king, and activities for salvation. Then he described the duties of women and devotees, both briefly and extensively. Then he described the occupational duties of different orders and statuses of life, citing instances from history, for he himself was well acquainted with the truth. While Bhismadeva was describing occupational duties, the sun's course ran into the northern hemisphere. The period is desired by mystics who die at their will. Thereupon the man who spoke on different subjects with thousands of meanings, and who fought on thousands of battlefields and protected thousands of men, stopped speaking, and being completely freed from all bondage, withdrew his mind from everything else, and fixed his wide-open eyes upon the original personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who stood before him, four-handed, dressed in yellow garments that glittered and shined. By pure meditation, looking at Sri Krishna, he at once was freed from all material inauspiciousness, and was relieved of all his bodily pains caused by the arrow wounds. Thus all the external activities of his senses at once stopped, and he prayed transcendently to the controller of all living beings while quitting his material body. Bhismadeva said, "Let me now invest my thinking, feeling, and willing, which were so long engaged in different subjects and occupational territories, in the all-powerful Sri Krishna. He is always self-satisfied, but sometimes, being the leader of his devotees, he enjoys transcendental pleasure by descending to the material world, although from him only the material world is created. Sri Krishna is the intimate friend of Arjuna. He has appeared on this earth in his transcendental body, which resembles the bluish color of the tamala tree. His body attracts everyone in the 3 planetary systems. May his glittering yellow dress and his lotus face, covered with paintings of sandalwood pulp, be the object of my attraction, and may I not desire fruitive results." On the battlefield where Sri Krishna attended Arjuna, the flowing hair of Lord Krishna turned ashen due to the dust raised by the hoofs of the horses, and because of his labor beads of sweat wetted his face. All these decorations, intensified by the wounds dealt by my sharp arrows, were enjoyed by him. Let my mind thus go unto Sri Krishna. In obedience to the command of his friend, Sri Krishna entered the arena of the battlefield of Kurukshetra between the soldiers of Arjuna and Duryodhana, and while there he shortened the lifespans of the opposite party by a merciful glance. This was done simply by his looking at the enemy. Let my mind be upon that of Sri Krishna. When Arjuna was seemingly polluted by ignorance upon observing the soldiers and commanders before him on the battlefield, the Lord eradicated his ignorance by delivering transcendental knowledge. May his lotus feet remain the object of my attraction always. Fulfilling my vow and sacrificing his own promise, he got down from the chariot, took up his wheel, and ran towards me hurriedly, just as a lion goes to kill an elephant. He even dropped his outer garment on the way. May he, Sri Krishna, Lord Vishnu, who awards salvation, be my ultimate destination. On the battlefield he charged me, as if angry because of the wounds dealt by my sharp arrows. His shield was scattered and his body was smeared with blood to the wounds. At the moment of death, let my ultimate attraction be to Sri Krishna, Lord Vishnu. I concentrate my mind upon the chariot driver Arjuna, who stood with a whip in his right hand and a bridle rope in his left, who was very careful to give attraction to Arjuna's chariot by all means. Those who saw him on the battlefield of Kurukshetra attained their original forms after death. Let my mind be fixed upon Sri Krishna, whose motions and smiles of love attracted the damsels, the gopis. The damsels imitated the characteristic movements of the Lord after his disappearance from the rasa dance. At Rajasuya Yajna, the sacrifice performed by Maharaja Yudhishthira, there was the greatest assembly of all the elite men of the world, the royal and learned orders, and in that great assembly Sri Krishna was worshipped by one and all as the most exalted personality of Godhead. This happened during my presence, and I remembered the incident in order to keep my mind upon the Lord. Now, I can meditate with full concentration upon that one Lord Sri Krishna, now present before me, because now I have transcended the misconceptions of duality in regard to his presence in everyone's heart. Even in the hearts of the mental speculators. He is in everyone's heart. The sun may be perceived differently, but the sun is one. Sutta Goswami said, thus, Bhishmadeva merged himself into the Supersoul Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, with his mind, speech, sight, and actions, and thus he became silent, and his breathing stopped. Knowing that Bhishmadeva had merged into the unlimited eternity of the Supreme Absolute, all present there became silent like birds at the end of the day. Thereafter both men and demigods sounded drums in honor, and the honest royal order commenced demonstrations of honor and respect, and from the sky fell showers of flowers. O descendant of Bhrigu, after performing that being, Shanaka, after performing the funeral rituals for the dead body of Bhishmadeva, Maharaja Yudhishthira was momentarily overtaken with grief. All the great sages then glorified Sri Krishna, who was present there, by confidential Vedic hymns. Then all of them returned to their respective hermitage, bearing always Lord Krishna within their hearts. Thereafter, Maharaja Yudhishthira at once went to his capital, Hastinapura, accompanied by Sri Krishna, and there he consoled his uncle and aunt, Gandhari, who was an ascetic. After this, the great religious king, Maharaja Yudhishthira, executed the royal power and kingdom strictly according to the codes of royal principles approved by his uncle and confirmed by Sri Krishna. Thus ends chapter 9. Hope you appreciated my interpretive reading. Sometimes I feel it's nice to do that just to keep track of who's talking. But it also means sometimes I stumble, so please excuse me. So if you want some background to what was going on here, it's the Bhagavad Gita. It's the story of the Bhagavad Gita. That's all the references to Arjuna and Krishna. If you didn't know, that's what this is referring to. It's referring to Arjuna and Krishna, the whole Bhagavad Gita. But if you want the bigger story, then go to the source of the Bhagavad Gita, which is the Mahabharata. Because, the Gita is just one chapter in that. Or, I don't even know if it's one chapter. I haven't read it. Maybe someday we'll get to it. So you can find the whole story of this whole battle and what happened and after the fact. But this is picking up from that story. So it's been a longer video. I thank you for hanging with me, and book recommendation and interpretive reading and all sorts of fun. And anyways, as Bhishmadeva said, the Lord is always with you. You may not understand it, but he's with you always from the beginning to the end, whether you see him or whether you don't. That's the mystery. We have a tendency to, we see the Lord, we understand him, or in the book that's what happens. We don't see him, we don't understand him, but in reality, as the Zen book says, it's always there. He's always with us. It's when we stand up, that's when the Zen starts. So alright, thoughts, comments, all that good stuff down below. Thank you for hanging out with me. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.